First City Council meeting. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now I would like to ask Eva Turner, Pat Apperson, and Christy Malone to come forward for a proclamation. Whereas Warriors for Freedom was established to provide support to our nation's heroes and enhance awareness of issues affecting veterans and their families, and whereas 22 veterans commit suicide every day, and whereas a 22-mile walk was last Saturday, September 19th, at Boomer Lake Park, whereas Stillwater citizens were invited to attend the event and walk, now therefore, be it resolved that I, Gina J. Noble, Mayor of the City of Stillwater, do hereby recognize the Red Dirt Military Moms and the Warrior Walk on Suicide as September 19th, 2015. I did read this on Saturday during the event, but I wanted to go ahead and recognize it again. And would you like to say a few words? Tell us a little bit about the event and what you do.
Well, we're Red Dirt Military Moms. We're a military moms group. We started out, we figured 3 years ago, kind of with Blue Star Mothers in town, kind of on and off with the group as far as they weren't fully chartered in the area, so they disbanded, and we decided in May that we wanted to continue that. So we started Red Dirt Military Moms. Also in May, we met with Warriors for Freedom, founder Major Ed Polito, and started working with him, and that's where the Warrior Walk also came in. And so on Saturday, we did a 22-mile, we sponsored a 22-mile walk to bring awareness for those 22 veterans that commit suicide daily. So we had 16 participants in the walk, and we had one actually jog the 22 miles. So we had quite a bit, get really close to finishing, but we were really proud of what they did to bring that awareness. So, yeah. Yes, and we want to thank you very much for your support.
That takes us to the consent docket. Councilors, does anyone wish to remove an item?
Item B. Motion to approve consent docket minus item B.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket minus item B. Please vote. And the consent docket is approved with a vote of 5-0, which moves us to item number 5, which is public. We don't have any speakers for that, do we? No. Okay, we're going to skip to number 6, which is items removed from the consent docket. And item number B, which was removed, Mr. Galloway, would you like to?
Yes, this item is for the council to basically ratify or approve the appointment of a new finance director. We advertised nationally. We had a lot of excellent candidates and interviewed, and I've offered the position subject to council's approval of the position to Mrs. Melissa Reams. I don't believe Melissa's here this evening. She attended the meeting last week, but we didn't have it on the agenda yet for approval, so it wasn't really appropriate to introduce her as yet. She is an OSU graduate. She worked years ago for a CPA firm in Stillwater when she obtained her CPA. And from then, she and her husband have lived in Michigan for a short time, but the last 20 years or so, they've been in Frisco, Texas. She has had her own CPA practice there, and she has done accounting work for the public school system in Frisco. They have moved back to Oklahoma. For the last couple of years, she's worked for the Oklahoma Tax Commission and is very highly qualified, and so I'm certainly glad to have them interested. They are anxious, with your approval, to move to a new home in Stillwater. They currently live in Edmond, but their desire is to live in Stillwater, and so I would certainly appreciate council's ratification of the appointment.
Not sure I'm forward if she's not here to be introduced to us, but that's why I wanted to pull it off. I wanted to.
Yes, she was here last week. She was going to try to come this week if her schedule was allowed, but she said she may run into some difficulty and couldn't be here this evening.
Well, I would make a motion to approve with the caveat that she attends soon so we can all meet her.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to ratify the appointment of Melissa Reams as Finance Director. And that is approved with a vote of 5-0. We look forward to meeting her.
We will publicly introduce her at the first meeting she can be here. And, she is scheduled to go to work October the 5th.
Okay. That takes us to item 7, public hearings. And the first, item A, is receive public comment regarding a request for annexation into the City of Stillwater corporate limits and application of the zoning district IG to approximately 108.77 acres located on the southwest corner of Burris Road and Jardeau Road. This is postponed from September 14th, 2015, CC-15-111. Mr. Dorman, did we have good notice on this?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Galloway?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to ask Paula Dennison, our Development Services Director, to present the report on this item, if you would, please, Mrs. Dennison.
My pleasure to. Thank you for the time this evening, Mayor and Council. What we have before you this evening is a petitioned request to be annexed into the corporate limits of the City of Stillwater and at the same time to have zoning designation assigned upon that annexation. What you see on the screens around you is the area map. What is hatched and outlined in red is the subject property, approximately 109 plus or minus a few tenths of an acre at this location. You can see it's located south side of Burris and on the west side of Jardeau. Jardeau north-south, Burris east-west. This is Perkins Road over in the left side of your screen. The roughly hatched dark line is existing city limits. So this property does join the existing city limits at this location. You can see the zoning districts around. There's public, there's residential, commercial, industrial, agriculture, more residential around Perkins Road. Anything that is not colored on this map means it is outside of the current city limits. So this would be an extension of the city limits. This is an aerial map from Google Earth. Actually, it's not one of the city's aerial maps. And my coloring, this is the approximate property location, again, at the southwest corner of Burris and Jardeau. The red dashed line that comes down to Richmond and across, and then Jardeau, that's the current city limits. So the properties back on the west side of the red line is within city. The east side is outside of city limits. You can see that there is a little bit of development, but not a tremendous amount of development in that area. The request is, of course, for annexation and the application of general industrial zoning. We have just received today a request from the representative, Mr. Frank Lewis, who is representing Primeland Properties, who is the property owner. The request is that he withdraw the IG zoning request and bring the property in upon your granting of annexation just as the default, which is agriculture. That is primarily what is occurring around in the area, and you can see from this aerial map that there is a lot of undeveloped land. We have heard from citizens in the area at the Planning Commission and other means that this is primarily an area used for agriculture purposes. And it makes sense that until an actual industrial or other application is really ready to be submitted to the city for development, that this property could come in as agriculture. And that is a policy that the city of Stillwater has. There are some findings. The general industrial zoning district is actually compatible with the city's comprehensive plan. The annexation of this property and the assignment of IG does fulfill an identified need for industrial land. And this is a little different than most of the other applications that you have coming to you where the Planning Commission makes a full recommendation of your action. The Planning Commission, in this case, only evaluates what zoning is to be assigned upon annexation. They do not evaluate whether or not the property should be annexed. That's up to the council solely, but their recommendation comes to you from the zoning application upon annexation. So that's what they have done, is evaluated that. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Again, the request has been amended just this afternoon to not go for the general industrial, but to have the agriculture zoning district applied upon annexation.
So all we will vote on tonight is whether we annex or not.
Yes, ma'am. That is one of the options, because by default annexing, the default application will be agriculture.
Councilors, any questions? Okay.
Clarify, but we could also vote on the IG, correct?
With us having a withdrawal of that request, then that is no longer out on the table.
So, okay. So no matter what, it's going to either go to agriculture or we just don't annex it. That's,
Well, if you annex it, then you have to zone it something, and so by default, it would become agricultural.
okay.
But you'll actually get two ordinances, assuming you voted to annex. So you would
Okay.
do an ordinance to annex, and then you would do an ordinance to zone it.
And it's zoned right now as agriculture.
No.
No, ma'am.
It's
No,
not
ma'am.
zoned.
There's no zoning outside city
Outside
limits.
city
It's
limits.
used as agriculture, and the
Okay.
use of the land is a little different from the zoning of the land. Mr. Attorney can correct me if I misspeak, but if the council chooses to assign some zoning district other than agriculture, then my suggestion would be to postpone the annexation, send the zoning request back to the Planning Commission for them to act on whatever other designation that y'all were interested in for the property. And then it would come back with a zoning recommendation on that, if that's confusing enough.
Say that one more time.
If you chose to look at another zoning classification for the property,
Okay.
postponing the actual annexation, but sending the zoning request back to the Planning Commission for their recommendation on that classification.
Right.
Any other questions?
I'm wondering if Ms. Dennison is the person to answer this. What are benefits of annexing for the city?
For the city, there are a number. For the property owner, we'll just start there. A lot of, especially commercial and industrial opportunities. The insurance, for one, is preferred to be inside the city limits because you have your fire and police protection readily available. You have your city water, sewer, electric utility, other things that the city manages that's a benefit to the property owner, as well as having those industries and those businesses connected to our utilities, seen as somewhat of a benefit to the city of Stillwater. Of course, Oklahoma, not being a high property tax state, there's not a lot to count on there from the annexation standpoint. But primarily nationally, it's viewed as inside the city is more of a business-friendlier opportunity for industry. and commercial activities, as opposed to the somewhat unregulated, unincorporated areas.
Thank you.
I would say, add to that, with regard to property tax, and we don't have property tax to operate on in Oklahoma. But in the future, should the voters want to consider a GO bond issue in the future, the more property you have annexed, the more value you have and the more the tax burden is spread out among all properties. So the more property you annex potentially reduces the per property owner share of taxes in the future, should you do a GO bond. So having a higher assessed value of total property is beneficial for the city's economic position, such as bond ratings and other things as well.
Anything else before I open the public hearing? Okay. I will open the public hearing at this time, and we have some requests to speak. They don't say if they are for or against. We're going to go with the for first. Who has a for request? Okay. Please state your name and address.
Good evening, Council. Lisa Navrakol with the Stillwater Chamber of Commerce, 409 South Main, Stillwater. Well, my position changes a little bit now based upon the annexation versus industrial general. We are in favor of zoning this land industrial general, so I'll keep my statements very brief since you will not be considering that. All of the benefits that Paula said in regards to annexation, but I would currently share with you, we have 18,799 acres of land comprised in our Comprehensive Plan 2030. 513 of those are industrial general, with an additional 897 called for within the plan and specifically on the north side of town. Types of sectors that we would look for to recruit within a property such as the size of this one would be manufacturing or industrial type of positions. I'll share with you that in the state of Oklahoma, for every 10 jobs created in manufacturing, 17 indirect jobs are created in your community. So it has a 2.7 multiplier. Also, I'll share with you, outside of government, Oklahoma's economy leans heavily on mining, retail, wholesale, and manufacturing industries. Together, they make up the top three, 36% of Oklahoma's total gross domestic product. So manufacturing equals about 11% of this. Also, manufacturing is ranked fourth in employment for industry for the Stillwater area. It currently employs 1,569 with an average wage of $41,454 per employee. And currently, we have leaving every day on a daily basis 508 Stillwater residents driving to other communities to work in the manufacturing sector. So I know tonight you have another industrial rezoning on another piece of property that will be rezoned to commercial or, anyway, you're rezoning it, sorry. And I would just say that we would be in favor of that rezoning also, only because of the area that surrounds this piece of property is not conducive any longer for heavy general industrial, whereas the property that is located out north at Perkins and Burris would be more suitable for larger projects. As it stands right now, our biggest contiguous general industrial tract is about 65 acres. And so we are limited when trying to respond to projects that would need larger sites. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else to speak for? Okay, I will start calling Mr. Willie Baker.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good
Willie
evening.
Baker, 222 East 7th. Since the agenda has changed a little bit, mine's going to be briefer than Lisa's, because I won't go into our position. But I represent Kathy and David Winslow from Tulsa, who whose family homesteaded a property that adjoins, and they're very much against and oppose the rezoning of this property to industrial. It is primarily agricultural property in that area. And notwithstanding what the chamber may be pushing for, that doesn't appear to be an area where there's going to be a lot of growth. And there may be down the road, but it doesn't appear to be that way at this time. But from the annexation side of it, we didn't come here just to say no on everything, so can't really say that we're against the annexation, but we do oppose the rezoning, which could follow. And I think the Winslows are going to speak next, if you like.
Okay, thank you. Kathleen Winslow. And I forgot to say it, please state your name and address.
Mayor and city councilors, I am Kathleen Darlow Winslow. I live at 2221 East 25th Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I have deep roots in Stillwater. I grew up here. I'm an Oklahoma State graduate. My parents and sister also graduated, but they graduated when it was Oklahoma A&M. I am here in regard to the 160 acres, the southeast quarter of Section 25, 20 north, 2 east of the Indian Meridian, that has been in our family since the land run. My grandfather was an immigrant from England. He homesteaded it. It was recorded in Perry. He reared 6 children on the farm. My father was born there. My father rode his horse in to Oklahoma A&M to go to school. And as soon as he graduated, he was on staff. He ended up being Dean of Agriculture and Vice President under Oliver Wilhelm. That property has always been used for agriculture. We plan to continue to use it for agriculture. It is presently leased for grazing. We have recently, with USDA, worked at removal of red cedars. We're in the process of making arrangements for weed control in the spring. We were here originally to speak against the industrial because we've had problems before. But as we want to keep it agriculture, I don't know about the annexing into the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. David Winslow.
Mayor Noble, Council Attorney, Ms. Clerk. Get my feet on the ground. It's my understanding there's no consideration of any zoning issue at this time. It's purely going to the annexation. And it's my understanding from the comments made that the annexation automatically makes it agriculture. So we're not talking about any businesses of any kind going in there without a new zoning application to go in there. Am I correct?
Correct.
I will not address the zoning issue then, but I do want to remind the council of 2 or 3 things that face a landowner at this time. Your land can be taken away from you by strangers in a blink. One is insult, and this is where trespassers are shooting your quail, your birds, fishing your ponds, beer parties, and dumping junk on your property. We are exposed to that. The next is pollution. Swan Rubber Plant came in there a few years ago, and they covered our land with lead. They killed a bunch of the cattle in the area. We complained to the state of Oklahoma. The Environmental Protection Agency said, don't get involved with the business. This makes money for the state. We then took a soil test and found that the soil was deadly. We met then with their top lobos coming in from their head offices or troubleshooters. We met in your offices here in the building. We worked it out and they cleaned up the mess. But that's another way your property can be taken. Another one are easements. GRDA and Rural Electric came on our property one time without any condemnation case of any kind, no notice of any kind. But we have 2 lines going across there we can do nothing about. The next one is eminent domain. And that's a real threat today. We have 4 oil companies trying to come on the property. If each one of them came on in their own way, in their own place, it would look like spaghetti out there. Ruin it entirely for any development, maybe even for industrial. and zoning. That's the new threat we had today. We're very thankful that that request has been wisely withdrawn. We are the quarter section that binds this on the south, and there is no foreseeable use for the property for that purpose, so I will not address that at this time. Kathy and I consider Stillwater as our own town. Every 3 weeks, we're here for the library board, a ball game, the reunion operations at the high school, farm issues, whatever. You are the last gatekeepers to protect landowners of property, and it's your responsibility for a responsible development of this city. Development has to be a very studied process, otherwise the community will be at the threat of the welfare of all of the citizens. You and the Planning Commission are the only entities to protect our legal rights. And so we're asking you to thank you for your consideration in this matter, and think of it as your property being challenged in one of these 5 or 6 ways that I've suggested, because it can happen to you. And particularly if it's a homestead, you want to protect it at all costs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ed Sheever? Please state your name and address.
I'm Ed Sheever, and I'm at my land is at 1520 East Burris Road. My mailing address is a little different according to the post office. But on the IG zoning, I was definitely against it because I didn't know what was going in on the property or anything like that. And another thing was I was concerned about my roads. Right now, the east part of Burris Road from Perkins Road to the half-mile line is in the city limits. County Commissioner doesn't want to take care of it now. He has gravelled my road from my fence line to the east, and the road grader turns around at the half-mile line and goes the other direction. So we do have a mud problem, and that's what was my concern too, is who's going to take care of the road. And then, if I understand right, on North Perkins Road, when you took that property in up there, and some of that land is not in the city, but you took from fence line to fence line, come to the turnpike, I think, to control access. Now, what are you going to do with May when you take in half of the road? Or are you going to take in from the fence line to fence line on May? And then I can't have any accesses or anything like that if I need a place to get in. And that bothers me a lot. Now, on the agriculture zoning, I don't really know anything about that. But on IG, I didn't know what was going in or anything, and that bothered me because I know some places where the noise is a problem, and some of that's south of Stillwater, and it's not zoned into the city. But they've moved in some stuff, and their lights are on all night, shining in the yards, and I don't know how those people put up with it. That was another problem, with noise and lights, everything like that could go in on an IG zoning, I guess. So thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you. Okay, that was our last speaker. So I will close the public meeting.
It's 6
And
o'clock.
ask staff to come back up.
Before I give the Planning Commission recommendation, would just like to clarify that upon annexation of property, state law, they like to change their annexation laws fairly regularly, so keeping up with it has been exciting. And what we have found is that when used to, you could just go out and annex fence line that Mr. Sheever referred to. Now it's annexing the full right-of-way adjacent to the parcel that is being annexed in. So, for instance, the portion of Burris Road that is adjacent to this parcel and the portion of Jardeau adjacent to this parcel, the full rights-of-way of those roads would be annexed into the corporate limits. So we wouldn't go not include them or a half, but the full road.
And how would that affect Mr. Sheever?
Pardon?
How would that affect Mr. Sheever, what he just said about being boxed in?
Well, if it were annexed and we include the road or adjacent right-of-ways, those would be city streets we would be responsible for. My question, Mr. Dorman, is I read that, and I read the new law. I believe that becomes effective November 1.
I think the annexation of the entire right-of-way is already in effect.
Oh, is it already in effect? I thought it was part of the new ones in November. And my question was, if you prepare an ordinance in the next meeting, I hadn't done the calculations, the effective date would probably still be after November 1 anyhow.
Right, but that provision has been on the books for a couple of years, if
Okay.
I'm not mistaken. So
Okay. It was restated in the amendment this year.
You will assume maintenance responsibility for that road.
So we're gonna have to go pay it?
No, we are not obligated to improve streets that we annex in. Any development on this property, the developer would be responsible for the improvement of it. Again, the caveat is depending on the condition of the street at the time of development.
But if it were annexed, we would be responsible for the maintenance, so the
For the
county would
maintenance,
no longer
yes.
have to grade and maintain. We would have to do that.
That is
Or we
correct.
could negotiate an agreement with the county for them to do it for us, since they have that type of equipment. But that would all be worked out. We'd be responsible for maintenance.
We do have in our codes that land upon annexation, whatever the use is, if it's a legal use at the time out in the county, then that use can continue. Same thing with the city not being obligated to immediately go out and pave or improve a road.
Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the applicant?
I have not seen the representative this evening. He came by offices this afternoon. I thought he was going to be in attendance, but he is not here this evening.
He stopped by my office as well and wanted to make certain that the same request was known. They wanted to withdraw the zoning application consideration, just annexation.
May I ask who is the applicant?
Primeland Properties is the owner. Mr. Frank Lewis is their assigned representative. And Primeland is Tony Weaver is a member of the LLC for Primeland.
Vice Mayor?
I just wanted to clarify Mr. Sheever's point about the property south of town that has a lot of lights and noise. If this property were within city limits, our own nuisance and noise ordinances would apply?
Yes, that is correct.
So that would be a protection, an added protection for that.
That's
area.
correct. Any laws that we have on the book, as well as police and fire protection and zoning, anything like that, those apply immediately upon the passage and publication of annexation. So there's not a 30, 90, 60, whatever waiting period at all. Just as soon as the ordinances have fulfilled their obligation to state law, then those rules and regulations do apply.
Thank you.
Paula, if we deny the annexation, how long do they have till they can reapply?
They can reapply immediately. There's
Okay,
not a
so it's not like-
moratorium.
okay.
Correct.
Annexation.
Okay.
That is
Pop
correct.
the map back up.
That one?
Yep. The rest of the part that's not yellow, is that the Winslow's property?
The south part.
I believe
That
this
part.
is the Winslow's property,
Okay,
the very southern quarter
okay.
of this section. This is, if I'm correct, this still owned by Primeland, but it's not included in their request.
Could you point out where Mr. Sheever's property is?
I do not know. Mr. Sheever?
Yellow card, I'm just across the road north.
North.
Here?
Right.
Okay.
So that it's all connected, right? There's not a, looks like a road, but I'm assuming that's just a tree line in between half of there, right there. Go down a little bit. That's just a tree line, right? That's not like a road in between there.
It's not a road, it's a half section, and usually those have been designated by a tree line or fence that had something grow up previously, yes. You can sort of see the little driveways that are cutting through the properties. Any other questions?
Counselors?
Okay, Planning Commission, their recommendation, again, on the zoning only, was not to recommend the general industrial zoning, and that was a 4-to-1 vote coming to the council.
But again, they could not recommend on annexation because that's something city council deals with.
That is correct. They do not evaluate the annexation question. And I threw in another slide just in case you might need it, if I may. And of course, it's a little different now that the IG has been removed, but alternatives 2, 3, and 4 are still available on the table for your consideration, if this helps any. Anything else from me while I'm up here?
Thank you. Counselors, is there a motion?
I don't know. I'm not really against the annexation, but I'd almost feel better if maybe that whole section was coming forward and saying, please, annex us in. And I mean, without rezoning it right now, I don't really see a point in annexing them in. I mean, why not just let them come back when they're ready to move forward with something? I mean, in my mind, we'd just be annexing it right now just to, I mean, nothing's going to change. They're not going to change what they're using it for. And so I guess I don't know. I'm not seeing the big purpose right at this point of annexing it in.
Okay.
I do see a point in annexing it.
Okay.
And because of the request. Are you surprised?
No, I feel like I'm up here myself.
No, we don't know. The count's not in. I think that annexation is good for the city. It gives us more potential, as City Manager Galloway explained and Mrs. Dennison explained. There are benefits, and it makes the city an attractive place for the type of industry or jobs that would be positive for Stillwater.
Councilor Weaver?
In general, I like annexation when the applicant is requesting it, but I have noticed that we have had some difficulty in the past with certain annexations that we borrow future problems, and I would like to know what our commitment would be for water, power. We mentioned the roads, but I'm more concerned about, we have had an issue with annexation on water, and we've wrestled with it for a decade. I wouldn't want to be buying the council a problem 10 years from now, because that's not a very well-developed area out there. What kind of problems are we buying for ourselves down the road? I wish the applicant would have been here to describe what kind of future needs might be out there and what kind of plan there might be to, if you're going to build industrial out there, you're going to have water. You're going to have sewer.
Right. I will, if I may.
Yes.
Mr. Dorman may correct me, but I think that the annexation law requires that if you annex an area, if there's current use of that you would be required within 10 years to extend services to that use. For example, if it's a subdivision that you annex, you have customers there in use, there would be a commitment to extend sewer and water to them. But if it's agricultural, they have no current use. So that if it were developed for some other use, that developer would be responsible, if it were in the city, of extension of services to serve the property. We have a requirement that any development in the city if the services are not there, it's their responsibility, the cost to extend the service to the development. So I would think if it were annexed as agriculture, and then later time, let's say it were going to be used for commercial or residential or some other purpose, the developer of that use would be responsible for the extensions. Would that be correct?
That's essentially right. In the case of a petitioned annexation, you don't have all of those requirements that you do, whereas unlike in a scenario where the city brought it in on its own accord, then you have to have a 10-year plan to bring all of the services into line. Now, some of the services will be available immediately: police, fire protection, zoning protection, things like that will be in effect immediately, and the road maintenance obligation would go into effect immediately. You don't have to build a new road, but you'll have to maintain it.
But we're not responsible for the extension of infrastructure because it's at their request to annex. We're only responsible for the extension if we choose to annex, initiate it.
Thank you.
I'll make a
Yes,
motion
sir.
to approve it. The annexation.
Second.
I'm getting like looks like, that's not right. I'm sure you're saying the right thing.
That's the proper
it.
motion. If you want to approve the annexation, that's the motion.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the annexation. Please vote. And the annexation is approved with a vote of 5-0. That takes us, we will skip item B, and we are going to go to item C, which is receive public comment regarding a request for a map amendment to rezone a portion of property addressed as 7.
We need to take a motion.
Oh.
On B.
Okay. We need to take a motion on item B, receive public comment regarding a request for a map amendment for property at 6th Avenue and Kings Avenue from RSS Residential Small Lot Single Family District to the O Office District.
Motion to postpone effect until,
I was just looking at what's your date on that?
It's October, second meeting in October, I thought.
October 2nd.
October
Second meeting,
17th?
right?
until October 2nd.
No,
Okay, so we have a motion.
Second meeting.
17th,
17th, I believe.
that's why I'm asking.
Yeah,
What do they want?
yeah.
October 19th.
19th.
19.
Okay, we have a motion to postpone until October 19th. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and 2 seconds for postponement of item B. Please vote. And that is approved with a vote of 5-0. That takes us to item C. Receive public comment regarding a request for a map amendment to rezone a portion of property addressed at 799 East Mercury Avenue from IG Industrial General to CS Commercial Shopping and NTZ Neighborhood Transition Zone CC-15-113. Mr. Dorman, did we have good notice on this item?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Galloway?
Yes, I'd like to ask Aaron Baggerly from our Development Services Department, Planning, to present this, please. Aaron?
Thank you, sir. Aaron Baggerly, Development Services here to speak with you on the map amendment for a portion of 799 East Mercury Avenue. Recently, we've been before you with another portion of this property. Here's an area map of the property outlined here in purple and a light blue color. Request concurrent here with CS, Commercial Shopping zoning designation, and Neighborhood Transition zoning. And recently, you approved this portion of property here to CS, and coming back for the next two portions, parcels of this property. As you recall, recently we also approved a text amendment to create the new zoning designation of Neighborhood Transition zoning. And the applicant has requested this to transition from RSS, which is to the south, which is also the Lakeview Ridge subdivision. To the west here is CS zoning to the north, and to the west, excuse me, and to the north we have RTM zoning, which is the Aspen Heights multifamily housing development. To the east here, we have some agriculture and I believe IG zoning as well. This is a request to downzone from industrial general down to commercial shopping and neighborhood transition zoning. And as you recall, neighborhood transition zoning, the single family or duplexes are allowed in that zoning designation, and the average height of the structure cannot be greater than that to the adjoining platted neighborhood of Lakeview Ridge, which is single family homes, single story homes in that neighborhood. Our findings is that the neighborhood transition zoning is compatible with the comprehensive C3 plan. The CS zoning is not compatible with the comprehensive plan for this area. This area is transitioning. As we discussed, a lot of this was IG a decade ago, and now it's commercial shopping, single family, multifamily in the area, and the NTZ zoning is appropriate for this area since it is adjacent to a platted subdivision and between a platted subdivision of single family homes and a more intensive use commercial shopping as proposed. Does Mayor or Council have any questions for me?
Councilors?
No questions.
Okay. I will open the public hearing, and we have one speaker, Mr. Roger Gose.
Roger Gose, 113 East 8, on behalf of Mr. Kearns. Just here to answer any questions or clarify anything. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I will close the public hearing. Ask staff to come back up. Is there a recommendation?
Planning Commission recommended approval of this rezoning.
I would make a motion to accept Planning Commission's recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve CC-15-113. Please vote. And that is approved with a vote of 5-0. That takes us to general orders. Mr. Galloway.
Yes, we have several public-private partnerships agreements, as you know, and every year we have some reports, and tonight we have an annual report from the Stillwater Area Sports Association. We have their executive director here, Carolyn Wallstead, and so ask Ms. Wallstead to come to the podium and present you. We also have, what's your name again? Kevin Fowler, who's an active member as well, so a member of the board. Welcome, both of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. I'll just begin. My name is Carolyn Wallstead, and it's been a pleasure to serve as Executive Director for the Stillwater Area Sports Association, which you all approved 2 years ago, allowing us to manage the youth and adult sports for the city of Stillwater. So this is kind of our first presentation, and I would first like to start off and say it was a very smooth transition coming from the city. Barb Bliss and Jim Scott and Danny Gacious were very, very gracious, helping me fill the shoes and stepping into something that they had done for many, many years. And I think that it's been very successful. So we should be, let me see, slideshow. There we go. There's our logo. This was my spring. As you all know, we had youth sports going on. We had more games canceled and rescheduled due to the rain, but we were able to get all of our games scheduled.
You can't blame that on the city.
I know, it's not a city problem. There was a blessing in disguise, but because we didn't do a presentation last year, I'm going to kind of do it 2014 and 2015. We've just now completed a full year. So here are my participation numbers for 2014, and I had sent this earlier, so I think you guys had looked over it and given me some questions, and I sent back some answers. We were also able to do some tournaments in 2014, and we had a lot of participation, a lot of teams that came to Stillwater. Our tournament totals per teams were 234 in 2014. And our total participation was 2808. Those typically are a 2-day tournament. that kind of helps in our numbers. So love to see the fields. We've spent over $65,000 in 2 of our parks, and it's on our budget to go ahead and do 2 more parks this fall. But lots of compliments on our fields and the condition in Stillwater, and people do love to come to Stillwater. In 2015, when I presented this and made this PowerPoint, I was supposed to be on the schedule in July, and we kind of got switched around. But I have had youth softball, and our numbers are 51 teams for the fall of 2015, which is up. And then we also have adult volleyball at 23 teams, which is also up. So on all of our teams in general, we have increased our total team participation. Our baseball tournaments, we still hosted our teams, but we lost one of our major tournaments due to rain. Our wood bat tournament, which last year we had 96 teams, we tried to reschedule twice and wasn't able to get it in due to the weather at 2 different times. So our participation numbers are similar, but we lost a tournament with the 96 teams for our original registration. So our total is 250 for our 2015 total number of teams that came to Stillwater to participate in the youth baseball. Participation 2897 figured on. A lot of compliments on how personable and unique Stillwater is. One thing that we did, it was for the annual, the memorial for the bombing, Oklahoma City bombing. We had a moment of silence at the same time that everyone was honoring it. And I had so many parents come up and say, thank you for putting us back in perspective, that this is baseball. And that, so I was very proud of that. Again, just a lot of fun pictures. We have adult sports, and sometimes people all focus on what we do for the youth, but we serve a neat niche for the city for our adults, and we added summer volleyball. It is in the annex, and it is very hot, but we have co-ed, spike, non-spike, and women's, and we have a lot of fun in the gym. The annex is used every day. One of the questions that came back to me was, how did I come up with the numbers? And so I just wanted to say that I received the formula from Christy Morrison, which was the Visit Stillwater. And I actually halved her numbers because of the number of teams from Stillwater that were participating, and then also ones from around Perry, Pawnee, Perkins that wouldn't spend the night in Stillwater, so within a 60-mile radius. And so, you know, I feel pretty comfortable that that's pretty close to accurate if we're going by the estimated percentage that Christie's formula uses. So I think that's pretty good for 2 years. I'm pretty proud of that. Highlights, so sorry. Again, over the 2 years, we've spent over $65,000 in the field improvements. We've added fall softball, and we've added adult summer volleyball. For the first time, we hosted U-Trip State Youth Baseball at 2015 for ages 10 and 12, which is a big plus for the city of Stillwater. And we did have Willie Baker's son. He left, but he was on the winning team. So it was a lot of fun to have the city of Stillwater be able to be for that big accomplishment. We are also asked to host ASA adult softball, and that was at the airport fields and had a tremendous turnout, and have been asked again. In the past, you had to put in a bid, and they want Stillwater, they want the area, and so we didn't have to bid, they actually came and asked us. So I thought that was another plus for the city of Stillwater. A little changes that I instilled for SASA programs is the annex is very tight for youth basketball, and you get a lot of parents in there, you get a lot of kids running back and forth, and so I went to the school board and asked, and we were able to use Will Rogers last year, which was a new gym, had phenomenal bleachers and open space, and then we also used Highland Park, and it was really a good partnership and experience. The townspeople loved coming in and going to those schools because those typically aren't the schools maybe that their child goes to. It was a win-win situation, bright, great gyms. So we're excited that we're able to do that again. In the 2 years, we've hosted 10 baseball tournaments with over 5,600 participants. I do want to add that we have tried to host youth softball. We have had 8 different tournaments registered. They just didn't make. For whatever reason, youth softball is on the decline. The numbers, people at that age, the youth at that age tend to be gymnastics or tend to do soccer or dance or cheer. Dance is a big one, but that we lose a lot of youth teams for that. We have approached Sting organization, which is a Fast Pitch Association, and we asked to partner with them and perhaps trying to have their name attached with the SASA softball tournament to try and get people come in, because I truly believe that if we can get the softball teams here once, that they'll come back because we have the facilities and we do a great job. Currently, SASA serves over, in our leagues for adults, 1,645 in our youth and 1,900 in our adults in the past 2 years. And again, our youth sports are youth softball, basketball, and baseball. And our adults are volleyball, softball, and basketball. Basketball gets a little rough. I'll tell you, we've got some NBA players out there for sure. They're intense. But good sportsmanship. We love to see our fields and ballparks. And I just thought this was perfect. We gave out medals and trophies, and little Tabitha slept in hers. She was so excited. So I'd like to thank you for the opportunity. I feel like that SASA is representing Stillwater in a positive way, and we are doing all that we can to fulfill the needs for the youth and adult sports in a recreational but yet a competitive way, building Stillwater. From this, we have added 2 females to the board. When I made the slide, we hadn't done that yet, but we have Ellen Woods, who has youth, both a male and a female, a son and a daughter. It'll be part of the program. And then we have a adult volleyball player. So she will be the adult female voice representation. But I'm open to questions, comments, suggestions, compliments. We'll take anything.
Oh, I don't have a question, but I just recall that when we came upon the idea and wanted to try to create the partnership, it was during a tough economic time, and a lot of our motivation was about saving money, and we have. But I think at the end, again, we have another example where the partnership with the public schools and with the citizens has resulted in a better program than what we had before, and we're saving money. So this is just a huge success story that we have here, and I just really commend you and appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
I really enjoyed the presentation and getting the report earlier, and I'm so happy to hear you address some of the things that were glaring, the discrepancy in baseball and softball participation. It's, as you mentioned, it's just across the country. It's very, very interesting dynamic. I also love that you added 2 additional people to your board to kind of round out representation. Another question that I had raised and that I think is very important for you to highlight in your report is scholarships.
Correct. Yes, we honored the same program that the city had honored, and that was if they were able, or eligible, I should say, for food, reduced lunches, food for the city school program, then we allowed them a 50%. And last year we sponsored 83 players. So,
That's awesome.
Good, tremendous.
and we do that through part of our budget, and we do have private donations that they want to help the youth.
Are there opportunities for uniform and equipment
Absolutely.
subsidies?
Correct, yes. We've had several business approach us that they would like to sponsor the youth basketball jerseys this year, and this is kind of the first year that we've had businesses that will step in and do it as a complete whole.
Mm-hmm.
I've spoken to a lot of the morning Kiwanis, and they're ready to write me a check as soon as I need it, so.
I'm just curious, can Kevin Fowler still get a ball across the infield?
Get it? Yeah, can't throw it, though.
Well, I'd like to thank you because it's the first time I've gotten to know about this program, and you're right, when people come to Stillwater, it is a welcoming thing. But as I look at the fields and as you were creative to think about utilizing 2 gyms in schools, it's a sense of pride for the youth and the participants who are part of it, and that's part of the whole thing too. It's more than just playing a sport, it's having a sense of pride of what you're doing and where you're doing it at. So thank you for doing that.
Long time ago, I did sit on those bleachers, and I'm very excited about the possibility of shade.
Yes, yes, and that is on our budget for the fall is the canopies. That is probably the one negative, especially at Wittenberg. For those that have been out there, there is absolutely no shade. And when you're playing baseball, we usually begin, because of our numbers of team, at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's hot. And so they're not cheap by any means. They're very, very expensive, but is something that we feel that we will get the benefit back. People from our first year that came back and we had done Wittenberg for the field improvements were so complimentary, and several even said, I can't wait to see what happens next year, you know. So they're aware that we're investing back into the fields and the program.
I'll just round this out by saying, as someone who raised her son on all those ball fields and actually had Coach Fowler for most of the time, I'm so proud of the way this has worked out as a public-private partnership. It's run so professionally. It bodes so well for Stillwater, but for all the parents and the youth who participate in this. So thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank you very
again,
much.
I do want to compliment Barb and Jim and Danny, because the transition could have been very challenging, and they were open arms and made it a very good and very easy slide. So I appreciate that. But we're excited.
Thank you. Keep doing good work and go get more checks.
Here we go. Here we go.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you
a
so
good
much.
evening.
Okay, that takes us to number 11, which is reports from officers and boards. Mr. Dorman.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Galloway.
Well, I do want to just pass on some good news. I know that been a lot of construction on Main Street of a new water line going in. A lot of people were concerned that it may not be open for homecoming, but all the water line on Main Street is in the ground. That part of the project is complete, so Main Street will be open. No problem with the homecoming parade. So the 12-inch water line is in place from 6th to Virginia. Doesn't mean the project's complete yet. We still have some landscaping and stuff to do on the sides of the road and some other the ancillary stuff, but Main Street is open. We've got the project is about 64% complete. We still have some water lines on the side streets. On Virginia is currently under construction. We get those water lines in, then they'll move to, there's some others on Elm and 4th. But good news is it's on schedule and it's not going to interfere with the homecoming parade, so we're in good shape.
Good news.
And it's been, and I know it's been really kind of trying for property owners and businesses along Main. Everybody's been really patient, cooperative, and we really, really appreciate all the property owners along that street and everybody else being so patient. But it's good to have it complete.
It's progress. Yes. Okay. Thank you. Counselors, anything? How about, who's on the radio tomorrow?
I think I am.
I'm next time.
Okay.
I know that.
Okay.
We'll see you in the morning, Bill.
Okay. And Counselor Zanotti, why don't you read your good news?
All right, yeah, I'm excited about this. As an avid reader, I'm excited to say that the Stillwater Public Library invites you to its annual fall book sale. If you're a member of the Friends of the Library, you can stop by Thursday from 5 to 8 as a preview. For the general public, you may shop beginning noon on Friday until 8 p.m. and 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday. The dollar bag sale is Sunday from 1:30 to 4, and they have a ton of books. Please go shop and read.
Vice Mayor.
Counselor Zanotti got to read one because she's an avid reader. I'm an avid voter, so I'm going to put a push in here for the League of Women Voters, who will be celebrating National Voter Registration Day tomorrow by having a registration here in City Hall from 9:30 to 11 from 1:30 to 4:30. Yes?
They will only be here in the morning.
Okay, they changed. They're only going to be here from 9:30 to 11, so get up early, get registered to vote.
The chamber is doing one tomorrow too,
Really?
so you can go to the chamber in the afternoon. Yeah, it's on the website.
Great.
And we do have a vote on November 10th that we need everybody to vote, so it works out. Register, and if you're out of town, people who live here, you can still register here. I'm looking at the students who are out here. All the students.
Is that extra credit?
I would say it is, but I'm not their professor. Okay, if you are recycling glass, make sure to have it set at your curbside by 6 a.m. Counselor Nahara.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Stillwater was recently honored on the top 100 best places to live by livability.com. It was the only Oklahoma city to make the list. We were recognized for diverse industries, quality of life, healthcare, and OSU were listed as the reasons. So,
And we believe that.
Of course we will.
We believe that, yes. Okay, anything else? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the city council meeting. And that motion was approved with a vote of 5-0. We have a very short Stillwater Utilities Authority meeting. I call the Stillwater Utility Authorities meeting to order for September 21st. Trustees, does anyone wish to remove an item?
Motion to approve consent docket without item B, correct?
oh,
No item
okay.
B. So that's taken off. Do we need to postpone that or just take it off?
Take it off.
Just,
Okay.
Just take it off.
Motion to approve consent docket without item B.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket without item B. Please vote. And that is approved with a vote of 5-0. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Oh, second.
There's a motion and a loud second to adjourn. Please vote. And we are adjourned with a vote of 5-0.